Win some Proline tyres, win some Proline tyres. Or you can win, get this puppy out of here, a winch. And it even comes with its little worn sticker. How cool is that, eh? So guys, that's going to be this year's competition. Some guys need tyres, some guys need a winch. Write me in the comment which of the two you need, and I shall put you in the draw. Now let's get back into today's video. What was that? Hey guys, guess what? The donut truck has arrived. In case you didn't know, it's for the Jeep project. Not a good sign. This is a very rusted truck. And I just ripped the shackle out. Or the shackle off the, what do you call it? The tow hitch of the actual truck. Let's go look under there and see what happened. Well, it sheared it right off. Guess it's only made for forwards towing, not for sideways towing. Some quality item that is. So that is going to be the donor truck for the little Jeep project. Let's do a quick walk around. First of all, let's open the bonnet, because that's why I'm actually interested in this truck. It has a 3.9 fuel injection V8 in it from Land Rover, which, if I record this or remember this correctly, these were actually plans from an old Buick engine that Land Rover bought to build this engine. Let's take a little walk around. All in all, the truck is looking quite good. Not too shabby, but in the end, I don't really need a lot of the truck. I might just use the actual chassis, and that's actually the parts that are very interesting for me at the moment, because when I look under the Jeeps kind of have, if you look at their axle size, hang on, let me come from the other side, you can see the axles a little bit better. The axles are kind of a lot smaller. Well, these are all the originals. They're kind of a lot smaller, and then if you look under the Land Rover, the axles are very beefy. And also, seeing that we don't have leaf springs, this axle is hanging on a 3-link. So if we try and look under here, it's a little bit different to what we're used to, but this is one of the links that hold the axle. Sort of like half moons itself under there, and it swings over and gets connected in quite a strong setup, if I look at it like this. So that looks quite beefy to me, a lot beefier than the actual Jeep does. That is kind of the reason why I think maybe what we should do is put that body on top of this chassis. I'm still not quite sure about this, but let's do some measurements and see the wheel distance, the wheel space, the height of the motor, how high the motor sits, or how high the engine sits, and just do a little bit of measuring to see if that could actually fit onto this. Ooh. Tape measure. Okay, let's measure the center axle to center axle. This is about 2 meters and 41.5. Let's measure this axle, center to center. This axle is exactly 10 centimeters longer. It's 2 meter 51. That isn't half bad, because I still have a lot of space in the front. If I measure 10 centimeters, let's say we line up the back wheels and we take 10 centimeters, that would be about here. So the tire would actually be sitting here. So 10 centimeters is not a lot. So instead of the wheel sitting here, the wheel will sit here, and that gives it a little bit more of a longer wheelbase, which is actually quite good. And I've seen a couple of Jeeps where they actually extend, on the TJ especially, they have a wheelbase extension. So they set it up with a new 3-link, and the wheel actually comes a little bit forward. So we don't even have to cut this chassis. That is already looking quite good. Okay, let's do the width. Plus minus. This would be 1.75 meters. So 1.75 meters is the Jeep, and the Land Rover is a bit narrower. It's 1.72 meters. So 3 centimeters difference, and I'm thinking that has got something to do with the rim in the end. So we'd actually have to take the wheels off and measure the actual axle to see exactly what distance that has. But I'm not worried about 3 centimeters in this case. So what I am worried about is actually the height of that motor and where the body ends. Now if we look at these bonnets, they're kind of in the same height, but I'm still thinking maybe this motor or this engine might be just sitting a little bit too high, because when I look inside it and I look here, that gearbox is sitting a lot lower than the Land Rover gearbox. The Land Rover gearbox is sitting actually quite high, whereas this gearbox is sitting very low. So if we were to put this onto this chassis, if we were to put the body of the Jeep onto the chassis, we'd probably have to cut away the center and a little bit of the firewall, and then redo that, because, or maybe cut this one out and use it here, something like that. Because that is definitely not going to fit. But let's see how high the actual engine sits. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and measure top of the engine with the injector system on it, or just to kind of see what height we have from the floor. That would be 1.6 meters. And here we have about 1.3 meters, so 3 centimeters. That sits 3 centimeters higher. But we should actually try and measure that from the actual wheel axle, center of the axle, to the top. I'm just gonna roughly do this. This is about 75, and this, the highest point that I see here is probably also 72. So it's about a 3 centimeters difference. So if this body would be sitting 3 centimeters higher, that's also not a real issue. Now, the back of the truck, because there's a massive petrol tank in the rear, whereby the Jeep, the petrol tank sits very tucked in. So I have seen a couple of Range Rovers, old Range Rovers and old Discoveries, that have been bobtailed. So what they actually do, they cut out a section here and they bring in the back so that they don't have this long section hanging over the back axle. So if I look at this underneath here, my petrol tank literally sits almost at the back of the truck. So let's just measure that from plus minus center axle. It's about 88 centimeters. And this here is 64 centimeters. So definitely we'd have to cut the back of this chassis and move the petrol tank forward. But other than that, yeah, everything seems to be fitting quite well. And the other idea is obviously taking this engine out with gearbox and transfer case And if you look at the engine, it is actually quite a small engine. It literally stops over here, goes to there. So that is like 2.5 spreaded hands across. That is the actual engine block. So if you think of that coming over to the little black Jeep project, there is a lot of space in here. If I were just to kind of do 3 hands, 1, 2.5, the engine would be sitting about here. So there's enough space in here to actually pop that little 3.9 V8 in here. And I've had a few Range Rovers in the past, Range Rover Classics, 2 doors with 3.5s. The 3.9 is the same engine as the 3.5, just that it's fuel injection. The 3.5 is a carburetor engine, and I've always fared well with those engines. They're actually, let's say, bulletproof. I know you guys are going to disagree with me there. It's the electrics that are not bulletproof, but the actual engine is actually quite good. Hey, I found some money. I wonder why that's lying there. Anyway, so my measurements are kind of lining up. The wheelbase is 10 centimeters longer than the Jeep. The width of the truck is a little bit smaller, but I think it's got something to do with the actual rims of this truck to that truck. What else was there? Oh, the height of the engine seems to be fine. There's a 3 centimeter difference in that, in the height of the engine. So the only thing we actually really need to do is to shorten the back of the truck. Everything else would be, number 1, will it start? That's going to be next week's video. And then we're going to take this body off because it's sitting the same ladder chassis as a Jeep or similar system. Then we just have to figure out the points where the body will actually rest on, weld those on, tuck in the back of the truck, and Bob's your uncle. Well, next week what we're going to do, we're going to try and get this started, and then I'm going to take it up into the trail, see how it performs, and see how the engine actually runs, to see, is it actually worth what I'm planning? Because I haven't started this yet. But that's next week's project. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. Next week, when this truck starts, chicken wars are on, brew. I'm going to chase that rooster to Durangon.